Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Trust and Believe. Today, I'm going to be talking about a subject that I think everyone in the world needs to hear, even if you are about to maybe do laundry or wash the dishes if you don't have a dishwasher, or cleaning around the house and not vacuuming because you want to hear this. Or if you're just bored in your car and you're driving somewhere, where I believe that this subject is something that we all either need to hear for the first time or need to be reminded of as we continue this journey through life. I also want to say that before I start talking about this subject, that let's be clear, I'm not perfect and I'm definitely not trying to be. As you know, if you've read my book, T is for Transformation, I have a truth bomb that says perfection is temporary, change is constant. I'll say that again. Perfection is temporary, change is constant. And I believe that as humans, we need to be prepared for change almost each and every day. Not necessarily a change in your routine or a change in your dietary habits or whatever, just being able to be ready for change and be flexible in life. Because if you're constantly ready for change and you have an open mind to be flexible in your life, then you can be a good human. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So don't push pause, don't push stop. Share this with a friend and say, can you listen to this while I'm listening to this? Or if you're watching this on YouTube, can you watch this while I watch this? Because I really do believe that if we focus on being a really good human, life would be so much better. And we already know how tough life is already. So sit back, relax, and get ready to be a good freaking human.
Somebody say hell yeah!
What's up? He's better than Oprah. Come on, y'all.
This is Shaun T, and it's time to trust and believe. Okay, everyone. I know I say a lot of times this is going to be a quicker podcast, and I promise it will be. But I have been struggling lately, not overwhelmingly struggling, meaning my day isn't interrupted a lot by this subject, but I have been struggling a bit lately with the political climate in our world. Obviously, the pandemic has had everyone do major shifts in their lives. Usually what happens in our lives as we are going through each and every day, we have these dynamic shifts that are small. It's something like, you know, I got to get my oil changed today, or someone at work didn't show up, so I had to step in their place, or, you know, someone got a minor illness and you had to like run and help them out and take them soup, right? These are small shifts that happen in a day in our lives that we can handle. But right now, what's happening in our lives in terms of the political climate, the pandemic, and just the stress, the overwhelming stress that people have at this moment in time, are causing us to forget about basic human qualities, basic human appreciation, and basic strategies, if you will, on connecting to the fact that it's very easy to be a really good human. Also, one of the things that I read about, I read a lot of articles. If you don't know, I read a lot of articles. I should actually show you guys my phone. So when I am, let me show you my phone. So I have a text message strand to myself, to Shaun Blocker. I have my own text strand. And if you see, if I scroll, I only keep the last 30 days, but I have like a bunch of articles in there. This one says, "I'm sorry I cheated on you. I was drunk and your sister looks like you." That's a lot. Not a Good Human there, face masks, right? Some political things. I read all kinds of crazy things. And one of the reasons why I read really crazy and interesting topics like BuzzFeed all the way to, the New York Times, and political things is because I like to get a broad knowledge on how people are reacting to things in this world completely psychologically. Now, if you read the New York Times or a high level reading newspaper, you sometimes will get, I think most of the time you just get high level writing, and regardless of what you think or your political views are, they come with more information, and just like, someone did a lot of reporting and journaling before they wrote that. Whereas I think some other articles is kind of like, these are the 12 things that people do and you don't even know it. And it's silly, but you still learn a lot from articles like that, because a lot of the times when you see an article like that, it's connected to a Twitter post. And then you're kind of like, really? Is that what that person's going through mentally, emotionally? Or maybe it's a part of their humor for the day? Anyway, the reason why I brought up my articles, Twitter, BuzzFeed, the New York Times, is because with each and every article or each and everything you see and read, be it in the paper or on your phone or on TV, you get what someone is thinking. You actually get inside of the human brain. And a lot of times when you tilt your head down, you're kind of like, really? That's the way you perceive that? And it's not necessarily the way that someone perceived it. It's the way they deliver a message back. And I just believe that right now we, as a people, and I just put myself in there because, again, I'm not perfect. We just forgot what it's like to be a good human. Now, I'm going to tell you my definition of being a good human. My definition of being a good human is very simple. It's the golden rule. I've lived by it since I was 6 years old. In first grade, I looked above the chalkboard and Mrs. Boyd had a scroll, and in the middle, it had golden rule. Do unto others as you have others do unto you. And I just thought that was literally the most amazing thing I had read at that time. And today, and even today, it's still the most amazing thing. I literally live my life like that. And I try my best to say, well, if I don't want somebody to treat me that way, I'm definitely not going to treat them that way. And I'm going to start with something that's going to make a lot of people want to turn this podcast off. Let's talk about the mask. Now, here's the thing. I'm going to give you the foundation. I'm not telling you whether or not to wear a mask. If you wearing a mask or not is not going to affect other people. But I believe that some of the arguments out there of people, I think wearing a mask or not wearing a mask, I think a lot of the arguments are just rude. They're baseless facts, and they're a lot of lies, and people are more focused on a political view. They've been persuaded by someone else and what they think, instead of just using their basic common sense. So the way I look at it, now, again, I always like to say, don't get it twisted. You do what the hell you want. But for me, I know that I'm very careful. I wash my hands. I have like 4 things of soap. I have masks in my car. I have sanitizer, hand wipes everywhere. I carry wet ones in my bag all the time, everywhere. For me, I know I'm being very careful. But you know what? I don't know if the last thing I touched could possibly have infected me with anything. Now, like I said, I'm very careful. But if I'm going to the store, to Home Depot, or to the grocery store to pick something up, let alone going home to my mother-in-law who had lung surgery, the thing is, I'm going to wear a mask to protect myself and to protect other people. And some people are just not doing it for the sake of, I don't want to wear a mask because I believe that the government is telling me what to do. Well, the worst case scenario, even if the mask is bogus, you're not spitting on anyone. You're not breathing on anyone. Don't forget, not everyone brushes their teeth, which I think is like you not being a good human, right? I know that sounds really crazy, but if you're going to interact with people, I think that wearing a mask, it's okay. It's really okay. And some people, the same people that say that they can't breathe, well, you know, there have been some things where they see people doing other things and they're like, well, I thought you couldn't breathe. I thought you had a medical condition. So anyway, I don't want to get too far into that, even though I know people have, you know, a lot to say about that. But for me, it's just, I'm going to protect humans at all costs. I'm going to do the best that I can do to protect humans and know that there's a global pandemic happening out here. And I want to do my minimal part so that people can thrive and live and, you know, hopefully somewhere in the near future feel good about themselves and feel confident on going out, and we can go back and hug and kiss and shake hands and whatever else we do and have parties. I mean, I haven't seen friends in months where I believe that if we just all stayed home, we did our last little shopping, stayed home for 3 weeks, kept your ass in the house, we would have been fine back in the day. But at this point, it's like it ain't going nowhere because people are going places. But anyway, and they're not wearing masks. I really said to myself I wasn't going to get too much involved in the mask thing, but I just had to, because I just think some of the arguments that I'm hearing are people just not being a good human. Now, let's go to just some other things. How to talk to people. If you have something going on in your life and you are in a bad mood or in a bad place, the worst thing for you to do is to show up and be mean to people. I'm not saying that things can't bother you. We all have things that bother us. I have things that bother me, and my friends send me a message and they say, hey, are you okay? It seems like you're not doing well. Absolutely. You being upset about something or something affecting you in your life is not being a good human. You being deliberately mean to someone is being a really bad human, right? You spitting on someone, you cussing someone out that you don't even know at the store. I personally feel that, and I know I'm just overly nice. If someone is within 4 feet of me walking behind me and I'm at an establishment that has a door that's not automatic, I hold the door for them. And I don't care if it's a man or a woman. If someone's behind me and I'm in front of them, I step back, I open the door. Why? Because you know what? Sometimes I'm in a rush. Sometimes I want to be the first one out of the grocery store. But my thing is, if I'm not in a time crunch and I just want to hurry up, I never know if that person behind me is shopping for their kid and they had a really stressful day. So I'm going to be like, you know what? Let me open the door for you. And they look at me and they say, oh, thanks. Especially men. They're like, oh, thanks. And I'm like, you're welcome. Because we are so focused on ourselves most of the time that we are unconsciously rude and unconsciously inconsiderate. And some people are consciously rude and consciously inconsiderate. And they just do things because they are miserable, which is the next thing I want to talk about. And I kind of mentioned it. If you're miserable, if you are literally miserable today, do other humans a good service. Number one, you can let them know, I'm definitely not feeling good today. Like, I have an attitude problem. And number two, stay by yourself. Be alone that day. For instance, I came upstairs this morning and my mother-in-law is on some sort of medication that makes her emotional. And she looked at me today and said, I'm tear jerky today. And I was like, oh, what do you mean? And she started crying. And she said, I don't know, I'm just feeling really emotional. And I was just like, oh my God, I felt so bad. So I went over, obviously I gave her a hug. And I'm like, cool, thanks for letting me know. The preface is great. Like, if you're not having a good day and you feel like you're somebody that's going to lash out for no reason or just because of what's happening in your life or what you're feeling, hey, let people know, like, this is what I'm going through, because then people turn from your enemies to your allies, right? Not to dive deep into the Black Lives Matter, even though I should dive deep into it every day, because for many different reasons. But I can promise you right now that the person who says all lives matter, if they went up, well, you can't really do this right now, but if you covered your face in a mask and you went up and you put some hand sanitizer on and you went up to a black person at a protest somewhere that you didn't agree with Black Lives Matter, and you said, hey, can I talk to you one-on-one? And you shook their hand and you sat down and you said, you know what? For a long time, my stance is all lives matter. And that person says, well, Black Lives Matter. And you say, well, I disagree with you. And this can be vice versa too. Let's talk it out. Let's have a conversation. That is being a good human. Now, some people are going to be like, well, Shaun T, what are you going to say about the people that are rioting? Well, what you don't see is my conversations with people. Some people believe that the rioting is justified. I don't handle things like that. I believe peaceful protests are amazing, but guess what? Even when people are peacefully protesting, they're getting abused. You all saw the older 70-year-old gentleman who got knocked down by the police, and he didn't have his fists up. He didn't have his hands on a weapon, and they still knocked him down, right? That's not being a good human. We have the right to protest, to peacefully protest. So why don't we sit down and say to each other, hey, let's talk about this Black Lives Matter, White Lives Matter in a civilized way so that we educate each other. Because I think a lot of times, and I'm all for Black Lives Matter, when people say all lives matter, I get annoyed because I think they're just trying to, a lot of times I feel like people are just trying to argue to be arguing. But the person, like friends who have called me and have said, you know, okay, I understand that all lives matter. I don't understand that Black Lives Matter. I just feel like that is being a really good human, and it's a really great way to bring people together. I also want to say that I don't believe that everybody has a capacity to be a good human. There are some people that says everyone could be a good human. I actually don't think that everyone has a capacity to be a good human, just because the way they were raised and they don't want to change. But I believe that most people in this world have the power, the individualness, and the will and the want to be a good human and treat other people nicely and be kind. My friend Elliot just opened up a new company called Over the Bow, and one of his shirts says, be kind. And I just find that to be so powerful, and it's something that should be so easy. And like I said, in the political climate that we have today, people are forgetting how to be kind. Even when I look at some of the posts on social media on certain sides, and it's all just anger and madness and zero fact supported and literally just wanting to fight. Not fight. There's a difference between fighting for equal rights, fighting for oppression, than just being like attacking individual humans to say like those people are bad, being racist, being sexist, you know, talking about transgender people, killing transgender people. This is not being a good human. Being a good human is communicating with people who just may have a difference of opinion in you. Just like being a gay person, people are like, I don't agree with that. I'm like, how the fuck are you going to not agree with what I know is natural? When someone says that to me, they're not being a good human. They're being ignorant. And in addition to that, they're saying, I'm better than you. Which brings me to my very last point here today. If you walk out the house and you are literally thinking in your brain, I'm better than that person because they're black. I'm better than that person because they're male. I'm better than that person because they're female. I'm better than that person because I'm straight. I'm better than that person because I have more money. I'm better than that person because I work out more. I'm better than that person because my hair is longer. I'm better than that person because I get more swipes on Tinder. If you walk out of your house and at any point think that you are better than someone just because, then you are part of the problem. You are not a good human. And I'm here to tell you that. And the thing is, I don't think that way, but at the same time, I get mad, I get angry, I have moments in my relationship where I lash out, and I look in the mirror when I'm done, and I'm like, you know what, that wasn't being a good human, but I learned from what I did in my previous mistakes and not being such a good human so that I don't make them again. I make a conscious effort to learn from my mistakes. I make a conscious effort to talk to myself. I make a conscious effort to know what it is that I'm not good at, right? I'm not good at being patient. I already know it. Like, I'm not good at being patient. And when I get impatient, I start to get hot. And when I start to get hot, my temper starts to rise. And when my temper starts to rise, my fuse gets short. And when my fuse gets short, I have the capacity to blow up. Now, I'm not saying that you have to ignore the emotions that in the way that your body processes different emotions in different situations. But if you are repeating the same mistake or the same action over and over again, knowing that you're hurting someone, you are not being a good human. I would probably say that most of the people who are listening to this right now are doing things to make themselves a good human on a daily basis. And that's why I'm asking you right now, if you know someone out there who is not a good human and you have the facts to support that they're not a good human, you can do a couple things. One, share this podcast, but with a message that says, hey, I'm sending you this podcast in hopes that we can have an open discussion about the things that we need to work on so that we both can become better humans, that we can be good humans. It might be hard, it might be tough to have conversations with people who may not want to change, but by you being a good human and reaching out and sharing information that could possibly help them open their eyes to, number one, knowing that you want to communicate, and number two, working together and them surrounding themselves with somebody like you who you try to focus on being a good human every day. It just takes one relationship, one connection at a time for us to create more good vibes in the world. Listen, I love you all so much. I don't care what you look like. I don't care where you're from. I actually don't care what your views are. I am open to talking to anyone. But even just like in social media and even some of the comments here for, my YouTube, my podcast comments, you guys always keep it on 100. But sometimes the YouTube comments, you're like, what would possess you? I understand the dislike button. I'm fine with that because if you don't like it, you don't like it. But I don't understand what possesses people to say mean things just because. Like, do you actually sit behind your phone or your computer keyboard or your iPad keyboard and say, I really want to make this person feel bad right now, and I'm going to say this, and I hope that their life sucks for 10 minutes after I write this message? What is the point in doing that? I believe, for me, I always ask a question. When someone says something really rude, number one, I fact check them. And two, I always ask a question to say, so why is it that you really feel that way? And people who are just mean to be mean will constantly deflect. So if you are in a situation where you're trying to have a conversation with someone and trying to up your good human level and up theirs at the same time, if they're constantly deflecting and not giving an answer on why they feel the way they feel about something or why they're acting in that negative manner that they're acting, most likely they're afraid to admit something that's going on the inside. And that's a lot. So on my next episode, my next one-on-one with you guys, I'm going to talk about that a little bit further and helping you understand, so you know when it's time to go to therapy. I'm going to tell you some of my stories about therapy, and I'm going to give you some stats on what kind of people need to go to therapy, how many people go to therapy, how many people are afraid to go to therapy, in hopes that it opens up your mind to let you know that you can go talk to anybody at any time. But if you fear it, I'm going to help you through the fear. So continue to be a good human. Thank you for listening. I hope you subscribe to my podcast, and always trust and believe in who you are, like I trust and believe in you.